Welcome, friends, and we are here at the library today, Neva Lemus and Children's Department, for our after-school adventure story time. This is our new friend and partner, Mr. David, and he is going to be reading some stories today about trees. He is going to be teaching you about trees and what all lives in all of the levels of trees. I know you're going to enjoy it. He is a delightful man, and I hope that you have had a chance. We're having trouble playing this video.
Okay. Oh, we are? Okay.
Okay, it's saying we're
because the screen says sorry, but that's okay.
Okay.
But it has the right phrase because it says learn more, and that's why we're here.
That is true.
Yeah, it still says lives. It says we're.
All right, you guys can give us a comment if you can hear us. Just let us know that we are still here talking to you, and we will continue.
All right, and we are back.
Here we are.
Mr. David is going to continue working with our story time today with trees. Please come get your tiny tree sapling. Talk with your parents about a good place to plant it, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Mr. David, for being here. Enjoy your books. Enjoy our wonderful student audience.
Thank you. It's such a treat to be here. The first book we're going to read, or I'm going to read, is called Luna and Me. And it's a true story. It's a story about a girl who lived in a tree to save a forest. So have you ever climbed a tree and stayed there all night? Once there was a girl who lived in a tree for over 2 years. Nearly 1,000 years ago, a redwood tree named Luna started on a hillside. She grew up in a big family with strong roots.
Mr. David, would you mind holding that
I'm
book
sorry,
up for
there we go.
everyone to see?
There we go.
Beautiful.
Okay, and that's Luna. And Julia was born some 13,000 full moons later. Her family was always moving. And she'd say, "I'll be home at moonrise, Mom," because she was an adventurer. Upon arriving in each new town, she scurried off to explore the forests. She whispered her secrets to the animals, and soon the animals trusted Julia. You can see her sitting there with her squirrels and birds and stuff. Once a butterfly rested on her finger all day, which was how she got her nickname, Butterfly. Luna, the redwood tree, held butterflies too, and wise spotted owls, and friendly banana slugs, gentle turkey vultures, daring flying squirrels, shy foxes, and a menagerie of forest friends. Do you all know what a menagerie means? It means a whole bunch of assembled creatures. Luna often told the animals, "If my arms seem full, it's not a chore. I will gladly grow more." And she always did. One day, Butterfly wandered into an ancient cathedral of redwoods. Her heart beat wildly. Thump, a thump, a thump, a thump. "Hello," a curious butterfly called up into Luna. "Is anyone home?" Broken branches stuck out of Luna's trunk like quills, and her side was tagged with a blue X. You can see the blue X right there. The redwood quivered with excitement, the way she always did when a new visitor arrived. Luna thought, "Do you like to climb trees? Give me a try. Oh, please." All aflutter, which is funny for someone named Butterfly, called out, Here I come." And up she went. Sorry. When she reached a comfortable perch, Butterfly introduced herself. "I am Butterfly, and you, Luna, are a ladder to the moon." Luna smiled inside. "Welcome, little Butterfly. You're brave to have ventured up so high." Butterfly marveled at Luna's view of the world. She spied a river twisting this way and that past Luna's countless brothers and sisters and cousins. But then she looked closer. Butterfly realized what the blue X meant on Luna's trunk. The tree would soon be chopped down and harvested. Butterfly's spirit wilted. She knew that people needed wood for building houses and furniture and for making paper and books too. But trees make the oxygen we breathe, she thought. Animals need trees for their homes. And without tree roots, mountainsides can wash away in heavy rains. Don't trees have a right to just be? Suddenly, an idea sprouted deep inside Butterfly. If I stay with Luna, no one will cut her down. Luna thought, then I will have another 1,000 years. But Butterfly would need a lot of support. Her friends were eager to help. Heave ho, up you go. They hoisted her food, water, a stove, fuel, and a tarp. She would need to tightly pack her waste in bags until her friends returned to haul it away. Ooh, the Milky Way flies right over you, Luna. That night she slept under a tapestry of starlight. The next morning, Butterfly awoke to voices far below. How can we help? You're strong. We believe in you. Do you need anything more? I'll come down if you promise not to cut Luna down. Other voices. You're not allowed to be up there. Go home. This is our tree. She'll come down when it storms. You can see the big chainsaw they use. Up top, Butterfly held on tight to what she believed in, Luna. But living 180 feet high in a tree wasn't easy. Her treehouse was the size of a sandbox. She cooked all her food in one small pot. And there wasn't a bathroom. She had to get creative. She created rainwater to drink and bathe. At first, raindrops popped like popcorn on her tarp roof, lulling her to sleep. But soon the refreshing rains grew into fierce storms. You can see the wind blowing, and she's up in the tree. Hang tight. It may rain all day and all night. Crack, flap, snap, whoosh, creak. Butterfly could barely hold on. Lightning struck all around, and thunder shook her courage. I want to go home, she yelled. But the howling wind just swept her voice away. Butterfly climbed deep inside her cocoon and drifted to sleep. In her dream, Luna spoke to her. I'm frightened, Luna. I will hold you till the sky is calm and blue. When she awoke, she discovered the sun. Jumping banana slugs. Her friends. Her wings. I won't leave you, Luna, she told Luna. Butterfly kicked off her shoes and spent the day turning her treehouse into a home. To exercise, she climbed barefoot to the very top of Luna every morning. It's 180 feet. That's like 3 times the length of your house. With sticky, sappy feet, she crawled like a spider up and down Luna's trunk. She explored each branch and met all her tree mates. And still, there was more. Deep within Luna's split trunk, Butterfly discovered a magical cave. It was alive. She found ferns, huckleberry, furry green moss, tiny mushrooms, bugs, chickadees, hummingbirds, chipmunks, and even a fox. Luna, Butterfly chirped, you're a forest within a forest. Luna beamed even brighter. Butterfly knew what she had to do. Her friends gathered supplies she would need. Solar-powered phone, check. Hand-crank solar radio, check. Books about ancient forests, check. Duct tape, check. Pens and paper for writing letters, check. Butterfly shared stories of Luna and the forest to anyone who would listen. And many people did. Busy days whirred and blurred into weeks and months and a whole year. And then another year. 2 years. And there she is up in her snug little tent. And a sign that says, respect your elders, and you don't get much more elder than a 1,000-year-old tree. Butterfly worried, will Luna ever be safe? Then finally, on the 738th day, a message arrived. Butterfly, Luna is safe. No one will cut her down. Your friends. P.S. You can come down now. As her toes touched the soft earth, Butterfly cried, we did it, Luna. But she didn't want to leave her friend. Butterfly hugged Luna goodbye and heard Luna's voice in her heart. As you grow strong and tall towards the sun, remember to bend with the wind, and when you dream and dance in the rain, I will be here doing the same. And you can see the sign they put up. It's called the Luna Preserve. It says, please tread lightly, which is what we should all do when we're in the forest. I'm not really a tree person. I'm more of a bug person, as you'll probably find out. But this is like such a great book to share with your kids or to share with your parents, because we're all responsible for what's going on out there. You know, the trees give us the air we breathe. They're all part and parcel of it. So I'm going to give you a short presentation, and we're going to talk about what lives in, on, under, and up in a tree. And if you have any questions, please send a question, and we'll answer it if we can. The title of the program is Who Lives in a Tree? Because seriously, it's a whole nother world out there in the woods. Trees come in all shapes and sizes. There are big, huge ones, like Luna. This is a sequoia from the northwestern part of the United States. That's what Luna was a redwood, but sequoias and redwoods are basically the same type of trees. Small, skinny trees. This is a grove of maples or oaks. I didn't get close enough to see. Early in the morning as the fog and the mist drifts through. Can I do that? Oh. So what do they all have in common? Well, trees are like an apartment house. with different floors and parts. The basement would be the roots. This is where our journey is going to start. A lot of different organisms live down below the surface of the soil. Here's a happy pile of earthworms, and they're each doing their part to aerate and fertilize the soil around the roots. They keep it nice and loose so the tree gets a chance to grow and expand. And with all the moisture and organic matter around the roots, all types of organisms find the root zone very hospitable. This is fungi, mushrooms, and they grow on decayed matter. Insects, in all their different forms, can be found here. This is an adult June bug. You'll find them late May, early June, buzzing around. They're good-sized insects. They make a lot of noise, but they're just trying to make more bugs. That's what they do. This is a beetle larvae, which is what they are before they emerge. And it's more commonly called a grub. So if you dig in your lawn or your garden, you'll come across these big white things, and they come from little tiny sizes into great big sizes. They make great food for birds, and they live down there very nice and peacefully in the soil, eating the roots. And burrows under trees are very common. But who would want to live under a tree? Mammals. Mammals like to live in the safety and comfort of the root zone. This is a picture of a groundhog. Possums, raccoons, and armadillos like burrows too. And this is a door in the base of a tree, because you just never know who's going to turn up in the neighborhood next. The next section of a tree is the trunk, which is usually covered by bark, which can be either smooth or scaly. The growth that's circled on there is called a lichen, which is, it falls somewhere between a plant and an animal. They don't hurt the tree. They live on the tree. And there's research being done now that says they may even be a benefit to the tree. And more fungi. Fungi, mushrooms, they love being out where there's lots of moisture and lots of stuff for them to feed on. The trunk is both home and a hunting ground for all kinds of creatures. Can you see the holes in this picture? Now, what do you think made those holes? What would make that perfectly straight line of holes? This handsome dude. Woodpeckers can hear the insects living under the bark, and they drill those holes to get at them. That's what they live on. They'll also do that to your house, but that's another story. And if you ever get a chance to see a picture of a woodpecker's skull, they have a huge long tongue, and it goes all the way into the back of their mouth and comes all the way up and attaches at the top of their head inside their skull. And they can extend it, out a good foot and a half, so they can chase the insects. And this guy is probably looking for one of his many relatives. This is an Asian longhorn beetle, quite possibly one of the most destructive insect pests ever to show up here. It was imported. If you ever find one of these, please bring it, or have your parents bring it over to the Extension Service so we can pass it on to the Forestry Service, because they can really, really devastate a forest. Sorry, no. Other insects just like to hang out, on the bark and lay their eggs. Most moths, very frequently seen on trees, will adapt their coloration to mimic the bark so they can't be seen. It's camouflage. Now here's a moth that almost perfectly matches the background. They're just, years ago when I lived up in New York, there were birch trees. And the birch trees had these beautiful black and white moths that lived on them. But then the air pollution came in and turned the bark gray, almost charcoal gray. Over time, the butterflies adapted. And now they match the trees perfectly again, so they can hide and don't get at. Some insects, oh look, a cicada. There's lots of these guys coming. They make little tiny slits in the bark on branches and to lay their eggs. Just a quick FYI, probably the end of April, middle of May, there's going to be hundreds of millions of these insects, most of which are bigger than my thumb. They're terrible flyers. They don't bite. But boy, oh boy, that's a lot of bugs laying around. Oops, sorry. Other creatures, like this bark scorpion, they climb around looking for food. Now, this is a whip scorpion. It does not have a tail, so there's no sting. But they do have these really nice pinchers in the front. They give you a nice little nip, but they're not interested in things our size. They can figure out, oh, no, you won't fit in my grocery bag, so I'll leave you alone. There's another Longhorn Beetle, and you find them by the dozens. You can stand by a bunch of trees and just watch them run up and down. And a lot of them are very, very specific to certain trees. Oaks have their own, maples have their own, ash has their own. So you can really end up identifying species by where they are. And it's also where you find the predators who eat them. This is a Texas rat snake. And yes, snakes climb trees. They've got that horizontal ridges on their bellies. They act like little tiny tractors. And they can climb great. And if you find a snake like this, please don't hurt it. All it wants to do is eat other animals. They're not going to hurt a human. They're not going to eat your dog. They're not going to bite your cat. Now, here's another one that's headed up into the branches to forage for food. Wonder what snakes can find to eat in a tree. Whoops. Okay, a lot of mammals find shelter in holes in the tree trunk. This is a white-footed deer mouse. Got a snug little nest in the tree. And before you feel too bad for the little white-footed deer mouse, they are one of the major vectors for Lyme disease. They carry the black-footed, black-legged tick. And yes, that's what happens. It's all a web out there, folks. Everything is interrelated. And chipmunks and other rodents are also happy in a tree trunk home. They like it. It's snug. It's got one opening so nobody can creep it. Possums. Gotta love possums. Speaking of ticks, possums eat literally thousands and thousands and thousands of ticks. And they almost never get rabies. So they're the safe ones to have around. Squirrels. Everybody like squirrels? I love squirrels. They're all nuts. They're all funny. They're just, to me, I had a friend of mine describe them as exposed nerve endings covered in fur, because they're just wired all the time. And even weasels. I mean, I love weasels. If you've been to the pet store and seen a ferret, that's a weasel. If you've seen a skunk, that's a weasel. If you've seen a wolverine, they're weasels. And they're just, they're part of the natural web. This is a pine marten, lives out west. They're just beautiful creatures. They really are. And a lot of them are prized for their fur. Even little teeny critters like a shrew find a nice home. Now, shrews, particularly tree shrews, are among the tiniest animals on Earth. I mean, they're really, the size of your finger. However, pound for pound, they are one of the most vicious predators around. Their success rate for hunting is in the high 90 percentile. They don't miss. But because of their high metabolism, which is how fast your body works, they have to eat a minimum of their own body weight a day. Otherwise, they starve and they get hangry. Oh, come on. Come on, David. Not rocket science. There we go. And birds like nests in tree openings. This is an eastern flicker, who are just, I think they're just beautiful birds. You don't see them as much down here because they like the deeper forests. But they're happy when they find holes. Plants, they like trees. They're like giant trellises. And they support them. Now here's English ivy. Yeah, I know. It is an invasive. And they're fine in little bits, but they can cover the entire tree and they will kill the tree because it cuts off everything, air, water, food. And then there are plants that are specifically designed to do that. This is a strangler fig, and it wraps itself around a tree and eventually squeezes it to death. You got different plants. These are mosses, which are really wonderful. If you ever make a fairy garden, mosses make great lawns for fairy gardens. They really are. They're wonderful. Most plants you find are harmless. This is a Virginia creeper, 5 leaves. But not always. Just because they're pretty, you need to be careful. Has anybody ever heard leaves of 3, let it be? That's poison ivy. And the oil that's on there, the earth oil, which is getting more virulent because of climate change, can really be just a nasty, nasty thing. And this is one of my favorite cartoons. Mommy, look, I found pretty plants in the forest here. It's an awful thing to have happen. Spiders love trees. First of all, because there's food, and second of all, because they can hide. I mean, I happen to think spiders are beautiful. Not everybody agrees, but that's okay. Here's another predator that pretty much is invisible until you get right up on top of it, and that'll start your heart beating real fast when you put your hand out and there it is. But please don't kill spiders. Just move them. They're not here to hurt you. And again, not everybody likes spiders, even if they are beneficial. This poor giraffe climbed a tree to get away from it. We're getting near the top. There's only 2 areas left. There's the branches and the canopy. Branches are the highways. That's where all the traveling goes. This is a howler monkey jumping from branch to branch. If you ever get a chance to go to Panama or Costa Rica or anywhere in South and Central America, the howlers can really light up the jungle. And you're like, whoa, that's noisy. This is a flying squirrel. Squirrels that fly. Not really, they glide. You know, they've got the patch of skin. You can see smaller cousins of them called the honey gliders, which they sell in the stores around holiday time. They make great pets. They just love you to death. But boy, if you get tired of it, please take it back to a store or to a shelter. Don't turn it loose because it can't survive out there. This is an eastern gray squirrel. We talked about squirrels. And they also come in black and brown. So you get a choice of colors. They're all the same species. Some of them are sisters and brothers, but they just chose a different color to wear. Diversity, folks, is what it's all about. Larger mammals, such as raccoons or possums. Look at that face. How can anybody hate that face? When I lived in New York, right outside our dining room window was a really nice sized tree, and we had a possum that would come and hang and watch us eat dinner. And we used to call it Pete the Possum, until one day Pete showed up with its family, and we realized it was Petunia the Possum. If you're ever in the woods and you ever see a baby bear, get away. Do not approach that bear because somewhere is mom, and mom doesn't like you messing with the kids. And you just never know who you're going to find hanging in a tree. And just please be careful because the ground is a lot harder than it looks. And when I was a kid, I was an inveterate tree climber. I still would if people would tell me, no, you're too old. If you break, we can't fix you anymore. So I don't do that anymore. Birds, of course, are always at home in the branches. This is an owl. This is a beautiful barn owl. And you see that flat face? That face is that way for a reason. That flat face and those feathers help it direct the sounds that it hears to its ears because it hunts mostly by sound. They can hear a mouse scampering through the forest. That's good hearing. And this is a little bitty owl. And there are a lot of owls here in Carrollton and in the surrounding farms because there's lots of food for them. So they're more common than people would know. And this may be one of my favorite birds ever. This is a blue jay. She's busy feeding the kids. They call them the policemen of the forest because they let everybody know when you're there, and they will follow you from tree to tree to tree to tree, screaming at you, going, go away, we don't like your kind here, get out. My kids are here, go away. And they will attack cats and dogs. They will dive bomb them in the yard, which is a hoot to watch. Not so much for the cat or the dog, but yeah. And then, of course, we're starting to see these guys. Robins are back. Robins are always a treat. It means spring is coming. I mean, it's more meaningful farther north because we now get them hanging out all year down here. And reptiles and amphibians are happy up there. This is a green tree boa. It's very bright green, but in its natural habitat, it looks like a vine, and people don't see it. And who doesn't love dragons? Okay, this is a flying dragon, but it flies the same way the flying squirrel does. It just spreads out and sails. Iguanas are great climbers, unless it gets really cold in Florida where they fall out of the trees, which I can't imagine being hit in the head by a falling iguana. Although they have signs for that say, beware of falling iguanas. Tree frogs, if you ever get to the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, they've got some beautiful, beautiful display cases with the live tree frogs in them. And they're that color for a reason, because they're poisonous. And if you eat them, you die. So if you're a predator, you've learned from experience, oh, look, that's what killed Uncle Charlie. We'll leave that one alone. There's another tree frog. Look at the size of those eyes. Those always amaze me, but that's so they can see what they want to eat. Insects, it's caterpillars. These are eastern tent caterpillars. They are a nuisance. They're called a pest, but they don't do all that much damage. They will strip the leaves from a particular part of the tree, but then the tree just grows new leaves. Wasps, gotta love wasps. They're the good guys out there because they hunt down, caterpillars and other things that eat plants and stuff. So yeah, and most of the wasps, with the probable exception of yellow jackets, who are born irritated, they will leave you alone unless if you don't mess with them. Like, get ready, because once the cicadas are out, cicada killers will be here, and they are monsters. But they only want cicadas. They're not interested in humans. They're like, no, you're way too big. I can't stuff you in my burrow. I'll go get a nice juicy cicada. Ooh. There's a sweet spot. Ants. The only place on Earth that doesn't have ants is Antarctica. Otherwise, they are everywhere. And there is a famous scientist. His name is E.O. Wilson from Cornell. He once made a statement that if ants disappeared, man would be extinct in 5 years. That's how important they are. They are pollinators. They're cleaners of the forest. They are predators. And they're very, very important. Try to remember that when you stumble across a fire ant mound and get stung. Even other plants. Here's Spanish moss. One of the questions we get at the Ag Center is it a parasite? No, it's something called a saprophyte. Both it and the organism it is on gain from the relationship. It doesn't hurt the tree. And chiggers love it because it gets full of chiggers. And chiggers like to bite people. Orchids, I have terrible luck with orchids. I'm known in my select group as the orchid killer. But they don't need dirt to grow. Orchids don't grow in dirt. They nestle into the crotch of a tree, and there's enough in there to sustain them. And they are beautiful. I have a friend who grows them, and it's scary to walk into his house. There are bromeliads. You can usually tell them because they've got a cup in the middle, and here's a tree frog that's living in there, waiting for dinner to come by. Oh, now we're right at the top. This is where the story's going to end. It's called the canopy because it hangs like a canopy. Sometimes science words do make sense. You got eagles, orangutans. What else we got up here? And some are small. This is a gliding ant from South America, and they sail through the forest from tree to tree and plant to plant. Some are beautiful. Some are very beautiful. This is a canopy butterfly. And you can see the colors. Then there's a sloth, which, I mean, got to be just one of the cutest animals ever. I mean, how do you dislike an animal that's got a perpetual smile? And whether they're familiar, like a squirrel, or bizarre, like this Katie did, which are really strange critters. They're all part of the wonderful world of organisms that live under, in, on, or on top of a tree. And I do believe that that takes us to our logo, where it just says goodbye. It says goodbye. Thank you. I appreciate your patience, and I get to read you another book. I'm so happy. We have time for this, don't we? It says a little after 7 after 4.
I've got 4:03.
Okay.
Take one more, but
So do we have time for this? Okay. This is a tree named Steve. I mean, how cool is that? You give plants a name. Oh, that's nice. It says purchased with a gift given by the Carrollton Civic Women's Club. I know lots of those folks, and they are really, really wonderful folks. Well, dear kids, a long time ago, when you were little, Mom and I took you to where we wanted to build a house for us to live in. But in order to build there, men had to come in and clear the land. And it shows them pulling up, and the goofy dog and the cat, and the for sale sign. I remember there was one tree, however, that the three of you couldn't stop staring at. Adam, now my son's name is Adam. Adam thought it was crying. Lindsay said it looked nervous. And Sari, who was only 2 years old, couldn't pronounce the word tree and called it Steve. I love you, Steve, she kept saying. And then Adam and Lindsay started saying it. And before too long, Mom and I got the hint and asked the builder. Asked the builder to please save Steve. The day we moved in, Steve was there to greet us. And there's the movers coming in, and the dog and the kids and the plants in the window. Steve. There we go. He quickly worked his way into your lives as a swing holder, target, third base, hiding place. Let's see if that works. Okay. Jump rope turner. That's a valuable piece of equipment. And whenever our dryer broke down, he held our underwear with pride. I mean, that's a friend. I mean, how many of you guys have friends that would hold your underwear? Yeah, me either. Yes, right there in the center of our yard, this weird-looking tree grew to become the center of our outdoor life. Through all our barbecues, campouts, dance parties. Oh, I like the lanterns. See the lanterns on there? Or when Adam and Lindsay started getting crushes on the Simon kids next door, Steve adjusted to our every need. Got more kids, and more pets, and more friends. That's a real friend. Ooh, sorry. And it wasn't always easy. Standing tall through the snowstorms in the winter. Yeah, snow building up on a tree can really be hurtful sometimes. Or when Uncle Chester napped in the hammock, probably wasn't a whole lot of fun. Uncle Chester appears to be a rather large gentleman. Not to mention the time the sewer overflowed, and Steve sucked up all the smelly water before it drowned Kirby. Oh. And then got so sick himself that the tree doctor had to give Steve a haircut that made him look like a big thumb. Through the years, Mom and I have tried to show you, in a world filled with strangers, the peace that comes with having things you can count on and a safe place to return to after a hard day or a long trip. Which brings me to the point of this letter. Last week, a storm hit our area, and we've all been through storms. Because I will. And though we spared Steve's life a long time, this time we couldn't save him. Are we sad? Sure we are. But even in his final moments, when he could have fallen on our house, Sary's swings, Kirby's house, or Mom's garden, Steve performed his last trick and protected all of us to the very end, and friends like this are hard to find. So when you come home from Grandma's next week, Steve will not be able to greet you as he's done in the past. I'm sorry, but please know that Steve will always be with us in our hearts and in our thoughts. And in a different tree at the other end of our yard. See you next week. Love, Dad. The book is dedicated to Robin, Adam, Lindsay, Sari, and Kirby. And you got to read this to your kids. This is amazing. And I apologize for the choky up stuff, but I'm a softie. I'm a real soft touch. And this was wonderful. And this brings us to the end of today. And I can't thank the library. What a treat this is. I hope I get back to see you guys. We've got some other things planned. And don't forget to come and get, oh, here, come on in here. There we go. Come on and get your seedlings.
Yes, please
There they
come. Please come. These are bigger than the actual ones you get, but they will grow that quickly, so fast. And the whole cicada thing, you are going to be so impressed.
We're gonna have some fun with that.
Cicadas next month.
Yep.
So that'll be the end of April. And I think that's it for today. Come and see us, friends, and check out some more books.
And if you ever have any questions about trees or bugs, call the Extension Service. There's always a master gardener available to talk to you. Staff is there. Please, it's what we do. It's our mission. Thank you.
Thank you.